Hello and welcome to week 11 of English 111. This week, our focus will continue to be on your research project. Now that you've turned in your topic history, the next step in the research process is to evaluate the sources that you're reading. This week, you're going to be listening to my lecture, which will be about evaluating sources, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing your sources. You're also going to be expected to read several articles and or books about your topic for your research paper. You'll be conducting some research. And you need to be able to do this in order to complete your journal entries this week, so make time for research. Your assignments this week are going to be 2 journal entries, and that's it. But you are expected to do significant research this week. Next week, your annotated bibliography will be due on December 2nd. So what are the factors that you should use when you evaluate a source? You want to look at its relevance. Well, the information that's contained in the source, sorry for that. Will the information that's contained in this source help you address your reader's needs, interests, values, and beliefs? You want to look at the evidence. Is the information offered to support an author's reasoning about an issue? So is there enough evidence offered to support what he or she is saying? And is it the right kind of evidence? Is it used fairly, right? Is it skewed just to give the information, or is it to support the argument, or is it real? And what's the source of the evidence that's provided? The author, you want to think about, who is this author? Is he or she knowledgeable about the topic? What's his or her affiliation? Is he or she a content expert in the area of your topic? And how do the author's biases affect the information, ideas, and arguments in the source? You want to think about the publisher. How can you locate information about this publisher? How do the publisher's biases affect the information, ideas, and arguments in the source? You want to think about the timeliness of the article. When was it published? Is it relevant to, if you're talking about something that's an issue today, don't use an article from the 1890s, right? Or even the 1980s. Comprehensiveness. Is your source complete, and does it give a balanced view of your topic? And what genre is the source? So what kind of document is it, and how does that affect how the author has presented the information? For example, if it is a opinion piece for a newspaper, it's going to be written differently than if it's a research scholarly article. Okay? So your first journal entry this week is to evaluate a source. I want you to go through all of these questions, and I want you to provide the complete citation for the source, talk about in what ways are the information, ideas, and arguments in the source relevant to your research project. Is the line of arguments in the source sound and well supported? In what ways can you use this in your project? What have you learned about the author and publisher that would lead you to accept, question, or reject the line of argument presented in the source? In what ways does the publication date of the course source affect your judgment and its usefulness for your project? In what ways does the comprehensiveness of the source affect your judgment and its usefulness for your project? And in what ways does the genre of the source affect your judgment and its usefulness of your project So really think about these. Get a source that you feel is something you can actually use in your research project, and go through and evaluate it using these questions. All right. One of the things we're going to be working on this week as well is managing information and taking notes. Taking notes is a really important part of your research project because it helps you keep track of the most important information, ideas, and arguments that you've encountered in your sources. It also helps you understand your sources. When you paraphrase or summarize your sources, you force yourself to really think through the passages that you're rephrasing in your own words. And through this process, you're really going to understand how this source is relevant to your own argument. So, one thing you're going to work on this week is quoting and paraphrasing. A direct quotation is just an exact copy of the words from a source, when you quote directly in your notes. You should always enclose a passage like this in quotation marks. You don't want to forget that this is a direct quotation. Maybe you just thought you had a brilliant moment, right, and wrote these words, and you forgot to put quotation marks around it. And when you put it in your paper, it would show up. It would be plagiarism if you didn't use quotation marks around it. You want to make sure that you identify the source and you list the page number just in your notes, so you can go back to that. If you use this quotation in your paper, you want to be able to find out where it is. Paraphrasing is when you restate a passage from a source in your own words. A paraphrase is roughly as long as the original passage, so you're not saving any time here. You're just saying it in your own words. And you use it to illustrate or support points that you make in your document. You can also use it to support, paraphrase, the opposite side of an argument, someone who's not in agreement with your point. Even though you're using your own words, though, you still have to cite a source. So here's some samples. I have a quotation here with the source. This is how I'd expect you to quote something in your notes, not in the actual paper. And then on the right-hand side, I'd have actually paraphrased the same exact quotation, so you can see how it's done. So your checklist for paraphrasing is: be sure you understand the passage by reading it and the surrounding text carefully. Restate the passage in your own words. Make sure that you do more than simply change a few key words. Compare the original passage with your paraphrase. Make sure that you've conveyed the meaning of the passage, but that the wording and sentence structure differ from those in the original passage. Note the author, title, and the page or paragraph where the passages can be found. When you summarize, you're making a concise statement of the information in a source. There's no opinions, it's just the facts. You want to convey the main point of the article in your own words and clearly identify the authors. You want to be sure to understand the source. You want to read it carefully and the information around it, right? And you want to check for unintentional plagiarism. It's really easy to plagiarize when you're summarizing because you just kind of change the key words and you don't restate the whole thing. So I have an example of a summary here. This is a summary of an article called Television Addiction, and it's just the basic facts of what's found in that article. So for journal number 2, I'd like you to respond to your sources. These need to be different sources than the ones you used in journal entry 1. What do you agree with in one or more of your sources? I want you to briefly summarize the idea or argument with which you agree and then explain why you agree. Then, what do you disagree with in one or more of your sources? Briefly summarize the idea or argument with which you disagree and then explain why you disagree. What do you see as the most important idea emerging from your research so far? Briefly summarize the idea and then explain its importance. Why do you think one or more of the authors you've taken notes on so far approach the issue as they have? Briefly describe their approach and then explain why they are taking it. Finally, what approach do you think should be taken on this issue? Briefly describe the approach and then explain its importance. So, this slide is incorrect and I will fix it in the slides that I post up there. Your annotated bibliography will be due at the end of, it'll be due on December 2nd. Then your thesis and outline will be due on December 9th. And we'll go from there. So don't worry about this. Download the slides. They will show you the timeline. I pushed things back a little so you can have some time to enjoy the Thanksgiving holidays and hopefully have extra time to do research and catch up on research. All right. I look forward to seeing you all online. Just email me if you have any questions.